There are wounds that don't come from enemies, but from the very people we once trusted as teachers. There are scars that don't bleed, yet quietly seep pain into the heart night after night. And there are journeys of vengeance that don't begin with rage, but with the silent tears of my daughter. If you've ever gone through something like this, or if you're a parent who has felt helpless watching your child suffer, leave a comment below. Hit subscribe, because I'll keep sharing real stories, hard-earned lessons, the kind only those who've truly lived through it can understand. We are not alone. And when the truth is spoken, darkness no longer has a place to hide. I'm a single father. My wife passed away when our daughter was just in first grade. Since then, it's just been the two of us, leaning on each other. We weren't rich, but we had enough. Not luxurious, but always warm. I named her Anine, hoping her life would be peaceful, untouched by storms. And thankfully, she grew up to be a kind, polite, and diligent child. She never once gave me trouble. She loved telling stories. Every day after school, she'd chatter on about everything. How she got a perfect score, how the teacher praised the class monitor, how a stray cat wandered into the classroom. Our little home was always filled with laughter. But then, one day, everything began to change. That day, she came home unusually quiet. No stories, no greetings, just walked straight into her room and closed the door. I thought she was tired. But it happened again the next day, and the day after that. Slowly, the sound of her voice faded. The laughter disappeared. Meal times became heavy. She wouldn't look me in the eyes, just picked at her food and asked to go back to her room. I started to worry. I tried asking her what was wrong, but she only replied, "It's nothing, Dad." Her face looked pale, her eyes avoiding mine. Sometimes she even flinched when I walked into the room unexpectedly. I couldn't bear the silence anymore. One rainy night, I knocked on her door. I said, "If you don't want to talk, I'll just sit here. When you're ready, I'll still be here." After a while, I heard faint sobs behind the door. Then the crying broke out. The door cracked open. She ran into my arms, trembling like a lost kitten caught in the wind. Through sobs, she gasped, "Dad, I don't know what I did wrong. Teacher, Mr. Duh yelled at me, said I was ungrateful, disrespectful, because I wouldn't do the things he asked, weird things that made me scared." I was frozen. I thought I had prepared myself for the challenge of raising a daughter alone. But nothing could have prepared me for the moment someone crushed her spirit so cruelly, all under the name of being her teacher. I couldn't sleep that night. The next morning, I took the day off from work and brought my daughter to school. Not so she could attend class, but so I could meet the teacher who made her cry so hard she couldn't look me in the eyes. Mr. Dewey. The name sounded intellectual. A young man, sharply dressed, with a polite smile and the air of a well-respected educator, the kind people tend to admire. He greeted me in the teacher's lounge with a professional smile, as if I were just another overprotective parent complaining about a bad grade. I didn't beat around the bush. I asked him directly, "Why did you scold my daughter? Why did you ask her to do things that scared her, things that made her cry and avoid looking at me?" He raised an eyebrow, then smiled faintly. "You've misunderstood. I'm just being stricter to help her improve. Children can be a little too sensitive sometimes. I have my own teaching methods." I looked at him. There wasn't a trace of guilt in his eyes, no hint of regret, Just a disturbing calmness, like he'd rehearsed that speech 100 times before. I walked out with my hands trembling, not from fear, but from anger. Anger at how easily he assumed his place on some higher moral ground. That smug superiority, cloaked in a teacher's robe but stripped of all ethics. I filed a formal complaint with the school board, detailed everything. I recorded my daughter's voice, describing her fear, documented every change in her behavior since those private tutoring sessions with Mr. Dewey. They received me cautiously. One of the board members gently said, "Sir, Mr. Dewey is an excellent teacher, with a lot of achievements. He's well liked by many parents. Perhaps your daughter is just a little overly sensitive." I gave a bitter smile. So achievements now grant immunity from wrongdoing. I asked my daughter if she was willing to speak up. She shook her head, eyes red and swollen. She didn't want to face the judgmental stares. She didn't want to be called the girl who badmouthed a teacher. And just like that, everything was swept under the rug. They said, "Who are you? A single father? Selling stuff online, barely educated? Who are you going to take on? A certified teacher with a solid reputation and connections from the principal to the parent association." I stayed silent. But inside, a fire had been lit. Not a reckless fire, meant to destroy or lash out, but a steady, burning flame. The fire of a father who had seen the one who hurt his child and was quietly making sure no one else would ever have to suffer the same. Our revenge. But in a different way, I didn't lash out. I didn't scream. I didn't demand justice with fists pounding on desks. I simply sat in the dark, quietly watching the fire in my heart burn. Not to destroy, but to illuminate. To light the path ahead. I knew that if I used violence, I'd just become another hot-headed dad in the eyes of the world. If I made a scene, I'd be dismissed as some bitter online seller angry at a respected teacher. So, I chose a different way. I began learning how to take revenge through success. I turned on the camera, propped up my old phone on a stack of instant noodle boxes, and in front of the blurry lens, I told our story, not naming names, not attacking anyone, just a father speaking about his daughter's pain. I let the truth speak for itself. I started a podcast. Each night after work, I recorded using a mic borrowed from my cousin who streams games. I shared the lessons I learned through the pain. How to truly listen to your child. How to notice the signs when something's wrong. How to build trust, not with yelling or beatings, but with quiet presence. Then, I launched a TikTok channel. I chose a simple, honest name. The Ordinary Dad. Because I wasn't trying to be a hero. Just a father who protects his child. I talked about education, about the truth hidden behind the teacher's mask of politeness. I shared how my daughter came home with tearful eyes, and how the system tried to bury it all under the weight of accomplishments. At first, hardly anyone watched. Some videos had only a few dozen views. Some podcast episodes, no one clicked. But I kept going, day by day, bit by bit. I didn't need fame, I just needed the right people to hear it. And then, I discovered my daughter wasn't the only one. Messages started coming in from unknown accounts, whispers in text. "Sir, I think I know the man you're talking about. I was afraid of him for all of middle school. I used to take extra lessons with that teacher too. I understand what your daughter felt. My parents didn't believe me, but I believe you." I sat still, heart pounding. I started reaching out. My schedule filled up. Video calls with trembling voices, broken breaths. Some of them had grown up, working far from home, but their voices cracked when recalling those memories. Some were still students, afraid, but wanting to speak. I didn't rush, because real revenge isn't making him hurt the most right now. It's making sure he can never hurt anyone again. I called in a lawyer friend. We met in secret, compiled files, took testimonies, gathered evidence, meetings held in quiet cafes, under false names, with not a word spoken publicly. I learned how to protect witnesses, how to work with journalists, with the online community, and even with my own fear. Then I saw something clearly. The worst villain wasn't Mr. Dewey. It was the system that watched in silence. It was those who believed they had the right to dismiss a child's pain, simply because the abuser had more certificates than she had tears. I was no longer just a helpless father. I had become someone my daughter could trust when she says, "Dad won't let this happen again." Revenge doesn't need blood. It just needs the truth to come into the light. And once that light is bright enough, darkness has nowhere left to hide. Justice isn't always blood and violence. 6 months after I posted my first video, something unexpected happened. It wasn't because I promoted it. There were no sensationalized clips or shocking edits. It was just a simple video, me sitting, telling the story of my daughter with a flat voice and eyes hollow from sleepless nights. And it went viral. One day, my phone started ringing nonstop. Comments flooded in. "Sir, I used to be in 8th grade at that school. That voice sounds so familiar." That teacher also asked me to do private lessons, saying it was to improve my soft skills. But every time I came back, I was scared. "Thank you, sir. Because of you, I know I'm not the only one who thought something was off." The media started taking an interest. At first, it was small, minor blogs that wrote cautiously. But then, when a former student, a girl, came forward, clearly naming Mr. Dewey, describing in detail the things she'd been through, everything erupted like dry straw catching fire. Another mother called me. She was crying, saying she hadn't believed her daughter for years, thinking she was just making up stories to avoid extra lessons. Now she knew. Her daughter had been crying in the bathroom after every special request from that respected teacher. Then a retired teacher spoke out, someone who no longer feared public opinion. She said Mr. Dewey had always had his special zone, protected by his achievements, relationships, and a system that didn't like to dig too deep if things could be handled internally. One by one, they stood up. No one was shouting. No one was holding signs. But every story shared was a small incision into the flawless shell that had been built around him. The school board could no longer stay silent. They issued a statement. Mr. Dewey was temporarily suspended pending an internal investigation. Public opinion was still dissatisfied. Pressure from the community forced the police to step in. The case was reopened. Testimonies were verified. Text messages, photos, and private tutoring schedules began to piece together like terrifying fragments of a long-hidden picture. Prosecution began. I didn't go live to celebrate. I didn't make a video saying I was right. I stayed silent. Because I understood justice is not a punch. It's not the satisfaction of watching the villain fall. It is peace of mind. It is the moment my daughter can sleep through the night without dreaming of those frightening eyes. It is when I can look in the mirror and say, I did the right thing. It is when other children, whom I'll never meet, will be spared from a harm that should never have existed. On the day of the trial, I took my daughter with me. She had grown stronger, but still held my hand tightly. The courtroom was nothing special. Still the rows of wooden chairs, still the police uniforms and the prosecutor reading the charges. He sat there, Mr. Dewey, once a role model in the eyes of so many. Now disheveled, pale, his eyes avoiding every gaze. When I entered, he looked up, and for the first time I saw his eyes tremble. Not out of fear of me. He feared what he had once scorned the most, the truth. I didn't smile. I didn't throw him a triumphant look. I just turned to my daughter, bent down, and whispered, "Daddy doesn't teach you how to fight back. I teach you. Evil people, if not punished by the law, will be exposed by the truth." And in that moment, I knew. We had won. Not with blood, not with prison, just with light. The light of courage, of fatherly love, and of the voices that had been buried under the dust of silence. Teach your children how to stand up. That day, after the trial, I returned home with my daughter to our small house. As we walked through the door, she looked up at me with her curious eyes and asked, "Dad, do you hate Mr. Dewey?" I paused for a moment, letting the weight of the question settle in my chest before answering. The anger, the frustration, the years of pain, they all rushed back in that instant. But I knew the answer I had to give. "Yes," I replied quietly, "I do. But I don't let hatred control me. Because if I let it take over, I would be no different than him." She looked at me, probably expecting something different. A child's innocent heart doesn't always understand the complexities of adult emotions. But she was learning slowly that the world is not just black and white, and that every choice we make matters. As we sat down for dinner, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought us here, how far we'd come since the day she first cried in my arms. It wasn't just about revenge. It wasn't about making someone pay for their actions in the way the world expects. It was about something deeper, something that would last longer than any anger or pain. Dear friend, if you are listening to this story and you have a child of your own, I urge you, teach them well. Teach them that not everyone who carries the title of teacher is a good person, simply because they stand in front of a classroom. Teach them that not all people who wear authority are deserving of their respect. And teach them that true strength comes not from violence or retaliation, but from understanding, courage, and above all, love. My daughter had learned that lesson in the hardest way possible, but what I wanted most was for her to never forget it, and for her to pass it on to others, as I did in my own way. You see, life isn't always fair. There will be moments when people will hurt you, when you will face situations that feel impossible. But I wanted my daughter to know something above all. Standing up doesn't mean you have to fight in the way people expect. Standing up means finding your voice, your truth, and having the courage to speak it, no matter the consequences. The world doesn't need more angry, hurt people trying to tear others down. The world needs more people who, despite the pain they've endured, rise above it with integrity and grace. I want to share something with you now. Maybe you felt it too. That feeling when you want to lash out, when your heart is so heavy with rage that you feel like you could break something, break someone. But you know deep down, that's not the answer. That's what I learned in this journey. That when we choose to stand up with wisdom, with patience, and with love, we change not only ourselves, but the world around us. This is the lesson I want my daughter to carry with her for the rest of her life. And I hope, as a parent, it's a lesson you can pass on to your own children. Teach them to stand up for what is right, but to do so in a way that builds, not destroys. Teach them to face adversity with dignity, not with hate. Teach them that justice isn't about revenge, it's about truth. In a world that often seems to reward the loudest voices, the most aggressive actions, it's important to remember that real power lies in resilience. It lies in knowing when to fight and when to let go. It lies in understanding that the most lasting change comes not from the battles we win, but from the lives we touch along the way. I also want you to understand that standing up for your beliefs, for your family, and for what's right doesn't mean you're going to win every battle. But that's okay. What matters is that you fought with everything you had. What matters is that you stayed true to your values, even when the world tried to tell you to compromise them. My daughter saw me go through the most difficult time of my life. She saw me struggling, fighting, crying. But she also saw me stand tall. She saw me put love, patience, and truth above all else. And when I looked at her that day, with her innocent eyes asking if I hated Mr. Dewey, I knew she was beginning to understand. And here's the most important thing. It wasn't just about me showing her the way. It was about helping her find her own strength. The world isn't going to wait for her to catch up. It will challenge her, test her, and hurt her. But I want her to know that she's not alone. She has the power within herself to rise above it, to stand tall, no matter what. And now, I share this with you, because I know that as parents, as guides, we have the responsibility to teach our children the most important lesson of all: how to stand up, how to face the world with courage and dignity, how to stand firm in the face of adversity, and how to rise, even when everything seems stacked against you. Teach your children to never give up on what is right. Teach them to fight, not with their fists, but with their hearts and minds. Teach them that every challenge is an opportunity for growth, that every setback is just a chance to rise again, stronger. In the end, my daughter learned more from what I didn't say than what I did. She saw that I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to destroy. I didn't need to break the man who hurt us. She saw that real strength is quiet. It's in the way we carry ourselves in the face of adversity, in the way we choose to be the bigger person when everyone around us is caught in the storm of their own anger and hurt. So, my dear friend, if you have children, or if you know someone who does, I ask you to consider, how are you teaching them to stand up? Are you showing them the power of love and truth? Are you helping them understand that they don't need to fight every battle with the same weapons the world uses? That they can rise even when the world tries to push them down? And to my daughter, wherever you are now, I want you to know this. You are everything I hoped you would be. You are kind, you are strong, you are smart, and most of all, you are resilient. No matter where life takes you, remember that you always have the power to stand tall, to rise above, and to never let the world break you. We all have that power within us, and it's time to teach the next generation how to use it. So please, teach your children to stand up, because the world needs more of that kind of strength. The world needs more of them.